Hey everyone, and welcome to Fantasy Football Game Week 8, as we will have a look at the fantasy team. I'll have a look at the league as well, because I forgot to do that last time, so apologies. And we'll go through all of the week's matches. There were some really interesting ones, I thought, going through, and the league is shaping up to look pretty interesting as well. So my points this week, 64, average was 55. Chilwell doing well in defence. Captain Kane, who usually does pretty well. I think he's the highest scoring player now. Werner as well. I brought back in. Did I replace Ings? That's right. Ings was injured. Grealish, I think, has also been doing really well this season. 60 points for him. Sam Maximin is the next one I would like to replace. Zaha's still doing all right. He's been getting some assists and goals. Son had a bad week, but we'll talk about Tottenham anyway. Calvert-Lewin got a goal, but Everton still lost. So he's still scoring, which is good. What's he on? 57 now. He's on 8 goals for the season. What's Kane on? 7. Werner's on 4, but he's just started scoring, really. Son's on 8. Wow. Interesting. Obviously, Liverpool didn't keep a clean sheet, and Arnold Robertson didn't quite get the results I wanted. I might look to replace Arnold then with someone else, because he started off very well, but in terms of assists and things like that, not really looks that good this season for various reasons. I guess I think we can do a bit better in defence there. So. Yeah, not too bad. Now, if we look at the ASMRplays league, you can see at the top here, United Adrian with 518 and a 72 week. Is that the highest out of everyone? No, we have a 77. So let's have a look here. McCarthy and goal, Walker Peters, Lamptey, James, Fernandez, Captain Son. Oh, that's unlucky. Yeah, Fernandez is a good shout, actually. I might bring him in, but I'm still unsure. Even Justin on the bench did quite well, actually. Interesting, very good. So yeah, in 8th place I am currently, which is actually fine, to be honest with you. I had a really bad start, and I'm just starting to kick back in again, it would seem. But yeah, not too bad. I guess let's talk about the results of the week. Some interesting ones for sure. I said last week I thought the Premier League was calming down a little bit with some of the results. I think this is kind of proven this week. We had a couple of big wins, but other than that, things seemed a lot tighter. We'll start with Southampton, Newcastle. This win put Southampton, I believe, temporarily at the top of the league. We could actually get the table up as well, which would be quite useful, hopefully. I'm actually downloading Assassin's Creed Valhalla at the minute, so I'm hoping that won't affect things too much on there, although this is not loading very well, so maybe it will. There we go, this loaded in. So yeah, Newcastle I spoke a little bit about last time, saying that I think what Steve Bruce has done so far has been very good this season. I mean, when you look at it, they are comfortably away from a relegation zone at the minute. His literal only job is to keep Newcastle from getting relegated. I don't think anyone expects this squad to achieve anything more than that. I know Newcastle fans would love them to play attacking football, and they'd love to get back to the kind of Kevin Keegan, Bobby Robson days, but the reality of the situation is they're a very different club right now, and unless they can get some big investment, which they've obviously tried to do, unless they can do that, then they're we all know Mike Ashley is not really going to invest a huge amount. Having said that, he has spent some money. They have brought in some players, and they have started to look okay. So, I think he realises that he needs to keep them in the Premier League, because that's where he's going to make money off the club. And there will be more bids, I think, for Newcastle. I think they're a very attractive proposition. They were obviously very close before. I don't expect Steve Bruce to stay manager if they do get taken over. I just don't think he's fashionable enough. But at the end of the day, he's doing a good job at what he's doing. Having said that, Hasenhüttl, he's an interesting one, isn't he? Because, we look at Southampton, they're in 4th right now. They started off quite badly, actually. And then they've really picked up in the last few games. They beat Villa, they beat Everton, they beat West Brom, drew with Chelsea, and then they just beat Newcastle. So they're picking up some good points. And I mean, they didn't have Danny Ings this one, which has been, somebody who's really been important for them. And they're doing it with a team which, when you look at it on paper, is there's no real stars there, is there? And I think this is proving that Hasenhüttl is a very, very good manager. They're doing it with possession. They're getting a lot of shots on target, having a lot of touches. They're looking like a really good team, and he's getting a lot out of these players. And I mean, when you think back to that dreadful day, against Leicester, how far they've come has been brilliant, and it's largely a lot of the same players, So there's a lot to look at with Southampton and be pleased. I don't think Hasenhüttl is going to be there much longer at this rate, because I think Southampton have a decent season and they finish top half, top 8 potentially. I think he'll be off to a bigger club. I was kind of surprised he went to Southampton in the first place and the bigger club didn't come in for him, because he is known as a very good manager, but it's obviously taken him a little bit of time to adjust to the Premier League. And I mean, I will say that, they are leaking some goals at Southampton. They're not, keeping as many clean sheets as a lot of other teams, but they are scoring well and they are doing enough to win games, and they're not drawing, they're winning, these games. So yeah, doing okay. I don't expect them to be top 4, top 6 even by the end of the season, but they're doing okay right now. And to win that game without Danny Ings, I think, is a real testament, because I think a lot of people felt like his goals were, the most important thing for them. So that's pretty good. Che Adams, I think, has come a long way. He was a talented player at Birmingham, and I think they purchased him, and a lot of people were kind of disappointed with his first season. But as you say it over and over again, it takes some people time to adjust. Some people can come in and get thrown in, and they will, bang in goals, or they will do really well. Some people it just takes a bit of time, and I think Che Adams is one of those guys. But he's beginning to really kick on now. I mean, it's 3 goals. He's 1 away from what he got last season, but his actual kind of link-up play and his play with Danny Ings in particular has been really good. So, yeah, fair play to Southampton. I think they're doing well. As I said, I don't think they'll be there at the end of the season, but I'm sure if they get top half finished, that would be real success for them. So we'll see how it goes. Newcastle, I think, will be fine. I think they'll finish probably round about where they are, and that's fine for them. Brighton have Albion versus Burnley. I mean, 2 very struggling sides. Brighton with loads of shots, only 3 on target. Burnley with not very many shots, 1 on target. Burnley are looking really poor this season. Like, they are looking really poor. I said last time, like, no investment in the team is you get what you get, don't you, really? This could be the season we see Burnley go down. I don't know. They haven't got a win yet in 7 games. They do have that game in hand. At the end of the day, if they win that, they will move out the relegation. Playing Crystal Palace next, which I'm sure they probably won't enjoy too much, hopefully. Brighton, again, I've always felt they've been very unlucky this season, but you do kind of start to question and say, is it luck, or is it just them? Like, we've seen some results not go their way when it's looked like they've played better than the other team. But I wonder if that, when you start to get into it and you go, okay, well, listen, okay, 8 games is not a lot, but 8 games is enough to turn around and see which teams have had a good start to the season, which haven't. They clearly haven't had a good start to the season. They clearly are conceding too many goals and not scoring enough goals. Although their scoring isn't terrible, to be fair, but they're just not winning games. And they drew a couple of games here which they probably should have won. Probably should have beaten Burnley. But the fact is, if they're not getting over that line, it feels like it might be a confidence issue with them, and it can be very dangerous when you're down there. You can get sucked in, and at the minute, sure, they're 3 points clear of relegation in a way, technically, but that is not really comfortable. They play Aston Villa next, who are in really good form, so I worry for Brighton this season. I said before, I feel like the bottom 5 now will be the bottom 5 this season, and it might be a ducat between them. We might see, like last season, I think we saw a huge number of teams potentially could go down, but I feel like this bottom 5 here are all playing very badly right now, and unless something changes with all of them, I mean, the one who you would say you would argue are best equipped to get out of it is Sheffield United, and they're in the worst position. 7 losses, one draw, 4 goals scored, 14 conceded is awful for them. So terrible. Man United Everton 3-1 to Man United, but a lot of people thought Everton were going to win this. I was really split on this. I think I thought it might have been a draw because people talk about Man United all the time. They're like, "Oh, Man United are terrible, this, blah blah blah." Well, listen, Everton, since Richarlison got suspended, have looked poor. I think he does offer a lot up front, which they don't get from anyone else. And Pickford, I'm not convinced by Pickford or their defence. And Man United, whatever you want to say about them, they have got some very, very good players, specifically Bruno Fernandes, who I think is one of the best players in the league. Even on a bad day, he can score you goals. And people were saying that this could be the game, this could be Ollie's last game, he could get sacked if he loses this, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, they won it and they're still in 14th position. So they have a game in hand. Admittedly, they could easily pop up to 7th with that. Well, they would need to score plus 4 goals, but maybe not easily. But they could move up, shall we say? With a win, 8th, 9th, something around there, which perhaps wouldn't look so bad. But you feel like with Man United, people are blaming Ollie and they're like, "Oh, tactically he's naive, blah blah blah." But I do think he is. But I think that Hey everyone, sorry, I had someone at the door, so I had to go. I'm going to kind of edit that and just splice it together to get that going. But we were talking about Man United, and I think the thing about Man United is with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he is a manager who tactically, people say he's tactically naive, and I agree with that to a certain extent. They act like he will never be able to tactically be able to do anything, and that is wrong, because we've seen this season that tactically he's got his tactics right on several occasions. He's had really good win here against Everton. He's beaten RB Leipzig. He's beaten PSG. They beat Newcastle comfortably. They drew with Chelsea in a game which they could have been more ambitious, and they didn't play well against Arsenal. But my kind of point is that, and we've seen in other games last season, etc., where they played well. I think the problem is he sometimes gets it right and he sometimes gets it wrong. And I understand the frustration from Man United fans because it doesn't feel like he's learning from it. I think he's got 2 problems. I think he's got a problem where tactically he's getting games wrong and he's not learning quickly enough for people. And then he has a problem with personnel where there are players. He has a problem where he has a good team, but I think he doesn't have certain players he wants. So he has a problem in defence where Maguire and Lindelof were not performing to the levels they should be performing to. They did better in this game, but they weren't great. And he's had problems before. Like last season, he had problems with De Gea, for example, where people were like, "Oh, De Gea's finished, blah blah blah," and you're like, I don't think that's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's fault. I think that's just De Gea going through some bad form. This season he has kind of Henderson to back it up, and you can go, okay, well that's good. He now has a kind of problem where De Gea is playing well and Henderson isn't getting a game, and that probably isn't settling well with him because he was one of the best Premier League goalkeepers last season. So he's going to have a potential problem there in January if Henderson's going to be like, I want out. Maguire and Lindelof. People say play Tuanzebe, he's fast, blah, blah, blah. Well, it isn't FIFA. Do you know what I mean? Tuanzebe clearly is not the most experienced Premier League defender out there. It's, if you're at a point whereby, look at him, he's got, 4, 8, 9, 10, 15, 16 Premier League appearances. Okay. He's 22. That's a very, very difficult decision to make when you're going up against two very experienced centre-backs. Luke Shaw's been playing well, and he's looked good. Aaron Wan-Bissaka hasn't quite looked good enough since he's gone to Man United. Like, the attacking side of his game was not developed at Crystal Palace because that's not really what they wanted him to do. And as a result, I feel like he's taken a long time to learn that. And maybe that's Ollie's fault. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's a coaching thing. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. Maybe it's the player who has just come through an academy that didn't really want him to go bombing up the wings, and attack that way. And maybe he's a slightly more old-fashioned defender than Man United necessarily want. I think there is a lot to argue and say that Aaron Wan-Bissaka is an excellent defender, and at 22, could be Man United right back for the next 10 years. So I wouldn't exactly abandon him. And then you have this midfield problem, don't you, where Donny van der Beek's looked really good when he's come on, and you have the Paul Pogba issue. He's got a lot of issues which I don't necessarily feel like his fault. Like, Donny van der Beek is not a bad signing. Clearly he's doing well, but then as soon as Paul Pogba doesn't play well, you have the argument of people going, you need to get Donny van der Beek in for him. It's not good enough. The Pogba problem's been a problem for ages, and it's like the Ozil problem at Arsenal, although I would say the Pogba one is slightly better in a way because, Arsenal were never going to be able to sell Ozil. He's on too much money. Pogba still has a reputation in the game, but the problem is with Ollie now is clearly Pogba's not playing very well. He's got better players on the bench. He's got better players who will put a shift in, on there. Pogba's out of form. Does he play Pogba back into form? Like, the only way Pogba gets back in form is if he plays in the first team. Do you do that? Do you trust him to get back into form? Has he ever been in form for Man United since he joined them? I wouldn't argue to say he's had the odd game where he's looked good, but I wouldn't say he's had a sustained run where he's looked like, a top quality defender. Midfielder. If he doesn't play Paul Pogba, sure, they can sell him in probably not January, probably at the end of the season, but they will get back half, probably, if they're lucky, of what they paid for him. Is that something which Man United are going to be prepared to do? Is he under pressure from the board to say, you need to play Paul Pogba because, yes, we're fine with selling him at the end of the season, but we want at least 85 million for him, for example, and you will not get that for Pogba right now. You might have Real Madrid sniffing around, but Real Madrid are going to go, this guy's out of form. He's not worth 100 million. We'll take him off your hands for 50 and get those high wages out of your thing. And from a Man United business point of view, I feel like that's unacceptable for them to have that, going forward. So the Pogba issue is an issue for Ollie. And I don't know if it's in his hands. That's the problem. You can turn around and say, well, he just needs to bench him and be strong. But he doesn't have the world reputation to be able to do that. He doesn't have the world reputation to take on the board. He's got to play with the board, or else they will sack him. You then have a problem, I think, where they needed a kind of a more defensive midfielder. They basically needed Matic, but about 5 years ago. And they have Matic now, who is still okay, but he's not really doing that well for him right now. He plays the odd great game. He does get injured quite a lot, or maybe isn't able to play as many games as he once was. Kind of had this same problem with like Man City in that way, where they do need this kind of defensive midfielder, but for whatever reason they haven't been able to sign one. I think both of them will be looking at Declan Rice at the end of the season. On there, I think Fred is having a good season. I think Bruno has been more inconsistent this season than he has last, but let's face it, he's got 5 goals so far, and I think he's got a fair few assists as well. In his 21 appearances for Man United, he's got 13 goals, 10 assists. That is phenomenal. Like, people shouldn't be arguing with that. He's one of the best players in the league, without a doubt. And this is in a side which is not exactly playing brilliantly right now. He's very inconsistent. So, and Juan Mata, is Mata capable of playing at the highest level in the Premier League? Probably not. Man United, they kind of need him sometimes when they play against a team with a low block, and he can unlock those teams. But perhaps when you're playing away to Everton, it's not a great idea to play your slowest player, on the wing. But then again, he didn't get that right midfielder. Dan James hasn't exactly set everything on fire. Van der Beek probably can't play there, or he's not good enough to play there, or just not experienced enough. Cavani's not going to play there. Do you maybe move Martial to the left, Rashford on the right, put Cavani through the middle? He has a lot of selection problems, I think. And I think the biggest problem has been, like, when they have had these bad results, I think they've, this whole kind of tactical naivety has just followed Ollie round, when I think actually he has had some really good wins, and he has got his tactics right on many occasions this season and last. It's just that when he gets it wrong, I think sometimes managers can get their tactics wrong and they can adapt, or their players can adapt. And I feel like he doesn't really have the leadership on the pitch where the players will adapt quickly. Tottenham is a kind of case in point with that. There was no one to really kind of take them by the scruff of the neck. Man United never replaced Roy Keane, did they really? They had some experienced midfielders, but they never really replaced that experience with leaders. They don't really have, you don't look at their players now and see leaders, apart from probably Bruno Fernandes there. And they do need more. They have quite a young squad. They probably would have hoped someone like Paul Pogba would be that guy. He isn't that guy. Like, it's not, you don't have to be like, a World Cup winner, experienced player, a Serie A winner. You don't have to do that and be like a leader. He's 27. He should be coming into his prime. But if he doesn't have that in his personality, he doesn't have it. You can't teach it at 27. So if he isn't a leader, if he isn't a leader, that's fine. He doesn't have to be. You don't have to have 11 players in the squad, but you have to have more than just maybe one. If you looked at Everton, you turn around and go, okay, you have some experienced players. Certainly Coleman there, Keane as well, experienced. Sigurdsson's been around the block a few times. Their guys are going to push on. Alan is definitely the kind of tenacious guy who's going to dig in, push forward. They've got some players on the bench who are quite experienced with them, and Pickford's certainly the type of guy who's going to be shouting at the team a lot and getting them going. And I feel like Man United don't really have that as such. As for the question of, like, if I was Man United, would I replace Solskjaer? I absolutely would. Just checking on this. I'm just going to pause this to help my internet. I absolutely would replace him, because I would never have employed him in the first place. I don't think a club like Man United is the sort of place where a rookie manager should be going to learn. It's never going to work, is it? Man United should be appointing the best and brightest managers in the world. So I'd say that. I don't necessarily think a lot of the problems are Ollie's fault. I think that he has shown that he could be capable one day of managing at the highest level. I think that it's been too early for him to do that there. And Man United should never have appointed him in the first place. I think they thought he had that kind of good run, and I think they thought we're so wrapped up in everything. I think it was around December, wasn't it? They were like so wrapped up in this kind of Ollie's at the wheel thing. They had that famous comeback against PSG. We're winning games in the league. Everything looked great after the doom and gloom of Mourinho. And I think they just got swept up in it and went, this guy's a wunderkid. He's brilliant. We need to sign him up. And I think they should have just done their homework a little bit. They should have waited to the end of the season and gone, listen, we said we're not going to appoint him on to the end of the season, and just reassessed it then. If the run had continued to the end of the season, I don't think anyone would have argued with them appointing Ollie. If it hadn't, Pochettino would have been around, etc. Well, he wouldn't actually. He went early next season, didn't he? But certainly some other some other big managers would have been around, and I think that would have made a lot more sense on there. As is, I think Pochettino would come in and do a better job than Ollie, because I think he is just more experienced as a manager, unfortunately, in higher leagues. He doesn't always get it right. Same with Ollie. He does play a slightly different style, which might suit Man United a bit better. They are a bit of a counter-attacking team at the minute, although they do that very well. And he does seem to be able to manage players and get the best out of them. He did that. If you talk to those Tottenham players, they all still love Pochettino. They really did love working for him. So, if I was a Man United, yes, I probably would get rid of Ollie and bring in Pochettino, but I would never have appointed him in the first place. I don't think that means that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is an absolute failure of a manager. I think he just came in too soon. I think he's proven in certain matches that he is capable of, tactically, putting a team out tactically, which can beat some of the best teams in the world. It's just, unfortunately, he's a bit too inconsistent and perhaps isn't learning from his mistakes enough to, warrant the long-term kind of loyalty from the club or fans that he kind of probably needs. So I don't think Man United will be in 14th much longer. I think they will push on up, but actually they're 5 points away or 6 points away from fourth place. They're also 6 points away from nearly dropping into the relegation zone potentially, but their 14th is a with that game in hand, it is a bit of a it isn't quite as bad as it looks, if that makes sense. They're playing West Brom next. They should win that. They obviously had that dodgy defeat in Istanbul. There's that terrible marking for that goal. These are the things where he seems to be able to beat teams which technically might be better than Man United or on form are better than Man United, but he doesn't seem to be able to beat the teams which are worse than United. So, I don't know. It's interesting to see what happens there. Will he be the first manager sacked in the Premier League? I don't think so, but we'll see. I think he will make it to the end of the season. Funnily enough, just because I think that's the way Man United work. I just think they're I think the board are not really very good at what they do, are they? So I think they might just try and stick with him. If he the problem is, he'll probably beat West Brom. There'll be 2 wins in a row in the league. He'll probably beat PSG or Leipzig and qualify past the Champions League, and people will be like, oh yeah, we're 8th and we're improving and we're 3 points off 4th and we're doing all right, and it'll kind of carry on like that for the end of the season. Just inconsistent, really. So Crystal Palace against Leeds. As a Crystal Palace fan, I was dreading this game. I must say, I came in and I was like, I spoke to my girlfriend about it, and I was like, Palace are playing today at 3, and she's like, oh, do you want to watch it? And I was like, no, I don't want to watch it actually, because I think we're going to lose. We're going to lose badly. Turns out I couldn't watch it because it was on BT Sport and I don't have that. But I was quite surprised following the game, going, hang on a minute, we just scored. Oh, that's cool. Oh, we just scored, and Eze scored an incredible free kick, and then Leeds scored, and I was like, oh no. But then we just went on and won the game and outplayed Leeds, and I was like, this is weird. Palace are 8th, doing well. We had a bad loss to Wolves. Had an unconvincing win against Fulham, although we were in control, but it wasn't. Probably should have scored more. Got battered by Chelsea, drew with Brighton, and I thought coming to this Leeds game, we were going to struggle. We were on the same points as Leeds, but I just thought their high energy tempo might just beat us in a way. Our kind of old man players, but as it turned out, tactically we completely outclassed them. Good to see Patrick Van Arnholt back. Technically he doesn't get an assist, but he obviously was putting the cross in, which held Acosta, put into the goal. Eberechi Eze, I think he's going to be a really good player. I'm talking I think he's going to be like a player who Palace might struggle to hold on to in a couple of years' time. He looks like he has everything, and he's got a great attitude. Everything I've seen from him just looks like he he really is just got a really good attitude. So I was so happy for him to get firstly that assist with Scott Dan heading in from the corner, and then an absolutely fantastic free kick, like incredible free kick. It was just brilliant. I'm so chuffed to see Reed Ward, playing really well. Zaha looks like he's enjoying himself, and I was really chuffed to see Ayew get on the score sheet as well. Zaha setting him up for the fourth. And just Palace just looking good, and they do this again. They're kind of inconsistent, but listen, we finished 8th in the league. I'll be the happiest man around. Like, the way I'm looking at the minute is I'm like, we're 10 points off relegation. Cool. I didn't ever think Palace would get relegated this season. And don't get me wrong, we're 8 games in, they still could, but I didn't ever think Palace would get relegated this season. I don't understand why people seem to think that. It's weird. As for Leeds are exactly where I thought they would be. Some people have talked about them. They had that good start, push on. I didn't think that would be the case. I think they will essentially be probably dragged into a relegation battle, but be okay. I think where they are now might be roughly where they finish at the end of the season. I worry for them in the second half of the season if they don't get enough points on the board, because they do tend to die off. We saw that in the Championship, and this season's going to be even more difficult for them. So yeah, I do worry for them in that respect, but I think they'll be okay. I think there's enough quality. I think Bamford is still scoring goals. Quite surprised at that. 7 goals now in 8 games, which is pretty phenomenal. Why has he not got the rest of his figures from Leeds? It's weird, isn't it? He obviously really likes playing at Leeds. There was obviously that offside goal, which is controversial. I don't know why they gave Zaha man of the match, but sure, okay. I don't really need to talk about these decisions that much. It's like with the penalties in some of the other games. Like, for me, they're not penalties. For me, that shouldn't have been disallowed as a goal. What can we say about it? It's the way it's going to go. If that's the way it's going to go, it's the way it's going to go. I don't think sitting here and talking about it for 15 minutes is going to change anything, so I'll just move on with it. And maybe eventually we'll see some change, but probably not right away, he says, as he manages to absolutely drop everything he can. I'm having a great time right now. Here we go. Sorry about that. I just wanted to cross my legs to get a bit more comfy, and I managed to knock my headphones off the table, despite them being on a hook. There you go. So yeah, I think Leeds will be fine, but I think they are where they are. I didn't think they would set the league on fire or anything like that, so that's that. Chelsea against Sheffield United. We've got a little bit of an early scare for Chelsea. I saw that goal go in, and I was like, oh no, now you've made them angry, Sheffield United. And sure enough, Chelsea came back and battered Sheffield United, who have not looked good at all this season. They've looked really poor. They used to be, last season they were really defensively solid. This season they're not, and I definitely think Henderson has, the loss of Henderson back to Man United has contributed to that. Really, that's the only difference when you look at the kind of back lineup, or the rest of the team. But yeah, so I don't know what they can do about that, but I wasn't sure about Ramsdale when they signed him, because I was like, you're signing a goalkeeper who's just got relegated. It's a weird thing to do for me. But anyway, Chelsea looking better and better each week. Thiago Silva looking like he's kind of bossing that lineup. Again, I'm not convinced Chelsea can mount a title challenge yet, but I'm prepared to be wrong on that, because you look at their stats and go, okay, they've only lost 1 game, which is as many as Liverpool, which is as many as Tottenham, who I would say are in the title chase. They're 2 points off those guys, which is nothing really, 3 points off the top. They've lost some points which you would argue they possibly should have picked up. That 3-3 with Southampton. There was the West Brom game as well. The Man United game they probably should have won. but everyone has this season, haven't they? They still, for me, I think this season could be good for them because they can the rotation they can get. I think, players will get chances. This week, we saw players like Hudson-Odoi. Well, I mean, I was going to say we haven't seen a lot of like Pulisic, etc. But he's still injured, so you're not going to. But like Kai Havertz, obviously he got coronavirus, so he's out. So rotationally they're doing well, and they have a very strong squad going forward. I worry if maybe Thiago Silva can't play every game, how that's going to work for them. I think Chilwell and Reece James are looking like two of the best fullbacks in the league currently. Mendy, he has been night and day with Kepa. He's looked really good coming in, and they this was the first goal I think they conceded in a long time. It was a nice, actually cheeky little back heel, to be fair, from a Goldrick. And the other thing is, I wouldn't say any of these goals were like works of art, but they were just almost like, it reminded me a little bit of Liverpool last season, where that kind of relentless pressure, just forcing the ball in through like sheer will. Werner, I think, needs to play up the middle. That's always been my opinion. I think his goal at the end was through the middle. I know he's playing there because of injuries. I know he's going to rotate, etc. But he is starting to get his goal scoring boots on now. 4 goals, I think, in his last 4 games, actually. Which is good. Ziyech is looking very good. 2 assists. I think he's got like 4 assists now, like 2 games or something weird like that. So yeah, he's looking very good. Hopefully Kante can come back to good form. It's looking good for Chelsea, isn't it, really? I'm going to actually change my mind and say I think that they I always thought they had the players to mount the challenge. I've just always been suspicious of Frank Lampard and his ability to defend, basically, his ability to create a defensive unit in Chelsea. And I said when they signed Thiago Silva, a lot of people were kind of laughing at Chelsea for signing, a 36-year-old. And I was like, well, for me, it made sense from a point of view of having a incredibly experienced central defender who's very good, one of the world's best at points in his career, and having him there to kind of marshal. And I didn't expect him to play every game, and now I think he might have to for them to win the league. But yeah, I think it's not surprised me that he's come in and done well. It's probably surprising the amount of goals he's been getting. I think he's got a couple now, actually. 1. I thought he got another one. Maybe that was in a cup competition or something. But yeah, I think him alongside Zuma is quite good, because Zuma obviously has the pace. I think Chilwell and Reece James have looked really good going forward. There's the touch of like the Newcastle's about Chelsea in a way. The Kevin Keegan's Newcastle, that kind of like focus on attacking, rather than defending. And listen, it's going to work against teams who play as badly as Sheffield United. Yeah, the argument's always going to be like, how's it going to do against the rest of the tops, the quote unquote top 6? And we'll have to see, won't we? Because they didn't play well against Liverpool. They played okay against Man United, but they didn't win the game. So yeah, there are still some arguments to be made there that Chelsea aren't quite ready to mount the challenge. But in this season, I think they've got as much of a chance as anyone else currently. West Ham beating Fulham with a late Thomas Tuchel goal. He's looked brilliant for them. We've got to talk about the penalty. So Fulham get a penalty in like the 94th minute. And Ademola Lookman, scuffed attempt at a chip is being polite. He tried a Panenka, and he obviously didn't hit it correctly. And the keeper just almost looked massively surprised that this ball was just travelling so slowly straight towards him. And it was almost, I thought the keeper looked slightly embarrassed to actually kind of pick it up. Like he felt bad for Lookman, as if to turn and say, do you want to try that again? Because that is pretty bad. I feel sorry for Lookman because I feel like he's been Fulham's best player this season so far. He's looked really good. And that is I say I feel sorry for him. Obviously, it's his choice to try Panenka. And obviously, it's a dumb thing to do. How old is he now? What, 21, 22? Like, he's 23, okay. Bit older. But my point stands that, like, if I was playing a football match and it was the 94th minute and a chance to get a draw for my team, and we were in trouble with relegation and every point counts, yes, I would not be trying Panenka. I would be trying to smash that in a corner as hard as I can. I don't know why people hit Panenkas. My thought is that they want to embarrass the other team. They want to be on social media. They want to be on all the things. They want people to be like, oh, look how cool he is, Panenka. You have more to lose from hitting one than you do from scoring it. Like, Sergio Ramos scored Panenka, and people were talking about it a lot. But when Sergio Ramos retires, no one's going to talk about his Panenka penalty. They're going to talk about the fact that he's won cups and things like that, and it at most that would last for a few days. That kind of, oh, that was so cool. Do you remember that? Or he's really cool. Whereas that miss is going to haunt him probably for the rest of his career. People will talk about that. If Fulham get relegated by a point, they will talk about it for years and years to come. If he hits the penalty in a kind of quote-unquote normal way and Fabianski saves it, as long as he hits it well, you don't want to go, oh, he missed a penalty, I can't believe it. But you don't want to go, that's a great save by the keeper. Fair enough. Fabianski's done brilliantly there. Like, you have so much less to lose. It's such a risky thing to do. I don't think he'll ever hit one again in his life like that, and rightly so. But I feel sorry for the guy. I can't help but feel sorry for him. Yes, if I was on his team, I would not be happy with him. But you would have to move on, because at the end of the day, what are you going to do? You're in a relegation scrap. You need every point you get. You need every single point you can get. So, it is what it is. It cost them. It cost them big time. But that's life sometimes, isn't it? Hopefully, two things are going to happen. Either he's going to crumble, or he's going to spur him on to play better for the rest of the season and really push forward with Fulham. And I hope it's the latter, because I think he's a good player, Lookman. Tottenham, West Brom, not a huge amount going on here. There's quite a raft of chances that went begging for Tottenham before Harry Kane finally, headed in with a deft header in the 88th minute. I thought Reguilon played really well again. I think he's looked really good. Dyer played well at the back. I think Bale, Son and Kane misfired quite a lot to begin with, but it's going to take them a little while to get used to playing with each other. And the important thing is they got the win. And that, to me, Tottenham look like they're going to challenge this season, I think, under Mourinho. And I think in a way, when you look at, like, Tottenham in the past probably would have lost this game, but I do feel like there's a bit of steel now under Mourinho. There's a bit of, like, they have this attacking flair. I think they've scored the most goals in the Premier League. No, Chelsea now have because of that. But before this game, they had, and defensively, they have had some howlers, but they've also done quite well. So, I think they're going to push on, and I think they're going to be up there this season. And I hope they do. I like Tottenham. And I like Mourinho. I think he's been unfairly treated by a lot of people. I think maybe now they're looking at those 2 cup wins with Man United in that second place and going, oh yeah, he did actually do a pretty good job, didn't he? Wolves and another penalty, which probably shouldn't be a penalty, it's dumb. It's like with if we talk about Man City, Liverpool in the same breath, the Joe Gomez penalty shouldn't have been a penalty in my opinion. It was. De Bruyne obviously didn't score it. Now listen, no one's talking about De Bruyne there going, oh my God, I can't believe he fluffed that. Like, he put it wide. Yes, he missed it. But no, I don't think they didn't lose the game, admittedly, but nobody's going, you're a complete idiot. So, if he'd tried a Panenka and Alisson had just saved it, I think that we would be talking about it very differently. So, more of the story is stop doing Panenka penalties. They're dumb. Vardy is just Jamie Vardy, isn't he? A tight game between Leicester and Wolves. Both good sides. Both, I think, will be up there trying to challenge for that top six. Leicester, I say that, but Leicester top of the league now. They're in crazy form, aren't they? Where they won their first 3, lost 2. Everyone's like, Leicester are out of it. Then they've roared back and they've won their next 3. They've got Liverpool next. It's going to be fascinating. Tottenham have got Man City after the international break. Really, really fascinating, I think. So hey everyone, sorry. I had to take a short little break here on that video again. We were just finished talking about Leicester and Wolves, but I think they're both going to do well this season. Man City Liverpool was obviously a very big hyped game. I think the first half was really good. I watched this game. But the second half really fell flat. I just think both the teams looked a bit knackered, to be honest with you. They gave a lot in the first half, trying to probably get a goal or 2 advantage, and then just kind of looked a bit flat after that. Gomez and Matip looked okay in defence, handling City. It was a good goal from Jesus, for sure. And, Salah made no mistake with the penalty, which was dispatched eagerly. But, I feel like it felt like the second half, both the teams went, draw here, we'll take it. Man City have been under pressure a little bit this season. To be fair, they haven't lost in the last 5 games. Liverpool, probably had some draws they should have won. Obviously, the Aston Villa result was shocking for them. They should be on 9, really. They're on 16. But that's kind of the way it goes, isn't it, I guess, with them. And I think Man City want to let this partnership of Diaz and Laporte, work out a bit better in defence, and I think both of them will take a 1-1. I think the fans would probably take a 1-1, and then just be like, okay, next week, we start again. And Liverpool are playing Leicester, and I think that's a big game. Man City obviously here, but in 10th, but that game in hand, could put them up to 6th. It's not a great season for them so far, admittedly, but it's been a topsy-turvy season. I don't think they're out of it. The same way I don't think Man United will be finishing down here. I don't see Man City finishing here either. It is interesting that obviously Ollie's been slated, and after this game in hand's played, it could be that Man United are 1 point ahead of Man City, and then where's the argument there, really? But we'll see on that one. I think this didn't really tell me anything I didn't know about the two sides. They're both very good sides. They're both kind of ran out of steam a bit because they've been playing so many games. It is ridiculous this season. And that's why we could see a Leicester or Tottenham sneak in there, where they're not obviously going to put all their eggs into the Europa League basket. We could see a Southampton pushing up. Chelsea have this huge squad, They got 1 or 2 key players, but other than that, they've got so many players they can bring in, which could do differently. So we could see this as a time when Liverpool or Man City perhaps struggle to, dominate the league as they have done in the last couple of last 2-3 years, really. But we'll see. Arsenal v Aston Villa. This was really interesting, actually, this game. Aston Villa wiped the floor with Arsenal, without a doubt. It could have been 6 or 7. Aston Villa have looked really good this season. They've had some bad results. They lost to Leeds and they lost to Southampton, badly, but they were right back on it this game. And I look at their kind of that kind of front 3 or 4 of Grealish, Trezeguet, Barkley, Watkins, and I'm like, that's really good. Certainly, Grealish, Barkley, Watkins as an English trio is really good. Barkley's looked revived under Aston Villa, I think. McGinn, just a very, very good player. We know that. Martinez, I think, quality goalkeeper that they picked up there for a really good price. I think Arsenal may have sold the wrong player. I look at Arsenal, and they have some very good players, but they just played so passively, I felt, against Aston Villa. Aston Villa was just a really good team performance. Like, everyone was pressing, everybody was really putting a shift in, and Ollie Watkins has been phenomenal this season, in my opinion. He's looked brilliant, and I think some bigger sides. I think the likes of Arsenal would probably rather have Ollie Watkins up front than Lacazette. I did this kind of role play video where I said that he should be a target for Arsenal, and I think that on paper he definitely should be. Because I think he provides something there that they don't have. Lacazette is not the most mobile striker at the minute. He's not the guy who's going to push back and press. So yeah, I think it's interesting for Arsenal, isn't it? They're in 11th. None of these games in hand. They either win or they lose. There's no draws, and they've lost to teams better than them. They've lost to teams on paper who are worse than them, but they haven't looked right this season. Something about them, I never felt like Arteta was like this God's gift to management. Like this incredible guy who's going to suddenly turn around to be the next Pep Guardiola. Like, of course he wasn't. But I feel like he's gone more defensive this season to try to counter the terrible defence that Arsenal have got, which is, before this game, they've only conceded 7, which would have been the best in the league. They're just not scoring, and it's like he can't get that balance right. And yeah, I don't know what it is. Aubameyang, he's been the guy with the goals for them the last few seasons, 22 in the last 2 seasons, and 2 in 8 games this season. And I don't know how many of them have been penalties. I think maybe at least one, I think, has been a penalty. Arsenal hadn't scored from open play, I think, for about 3 games. So that was a penalty. Didn't score then. I think it was the Sheffield United game in October where the last time they scored an open play. So something's not right for them. They are missing a creative player in midfield. They have Ozil. They're never going to use him. They don't have anyone else who can do that role. So, what do they do? It's a tricky one. I don't think they'll sack Arteta, but they need to get better soon, really, don't they? They're pretty poor. Pepe's been a massive flop. There's no way around it now. I say players take a long time to kind of get used to the Premier League, but I don't know what happened to him. He's had a season and a bit now, and he has not looked any better. So I worry for him. Bringing in 32-year-old Willian to basically replace him almost feels like the last nail in the coffin there, doesn't it? You bring on this guy who's 32 on a free transfer, and he keeps your £72 million winger on the bench. I feel like Pepe's done almost. Brought back in El Nene, who has been playing very well, but he is not a creative midfielder. Saka is still quite young. Partey is going to take time to adjust to Premier League. He was never going to be able to come in and just wipe the floor with everyone. I think he'll be a good signing, but he'll take a few games to get in. And it's just this front kind of 3 they can't seem to get right, or they're not firing correctly. And yeah, it's going to cost them. I don't think they'll make top 4 this season. They might be lucky to make top 6 again. And I don't know if that's good enough. In 2 seasons of Arteta, is that good enough? We'll see. And no one can say he hasn't been backed at the end of the day. He has been backed in the transfer market. He has got a lot of great players. He's got the signings he wanted. He's got to produce more on the pitch now, and they're not doing that right now. So I think he's in trouble. He's got to turn it around. I don't know. Let's have a look at what Arsenal's next fixtures are. So some of the dates are to be confirmed. So Leeds, they play on Sunday. That could be a tough game for them. Game they should be winning, but tough one. Then they're not playing here for some reason. They're not playing then that week for whatever reason. Oh, because it's probably games to be confirmed, isn't it? Great. So it could be Southampton and Wolves, I think, probably. Again, they're not easy games, are they? We've seen I would say there's an outside bet. Arteta could be the next manager to get sacked in the Premier League. Like, I don't know what the odds are on that. I'm going to look it up now because I'm intrigued. Odds on Arteta to be sacked next. He says as he has no signal to check this on his phone. Hang on. Okay, let's have a look at this actually. So we've got the sack race. Try and look this up. Where are we going? I'm trying to find something which is telling me to. Oh, here we go. Okay, so yeah, Arteta is 50-1. Arteta is. That's interesting. The favourites are Slaven Bilic, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Scott Parker, Chris Wilder, Sean Dyche, David Moyes, Roy Hodgson, who were quite high, to be fair, after Scott Parker. So Slaven Bilic, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Scott Parker are much higher. And I totally understand that with them. But 50-1 for Arteta is very interesting. Like, Frank Lampard is higher odds to get sacked, and Pep Guardiola is higher odds to get sacked than Arteta. That's really fascinating, actually, because you feel like there's no way City are going to sack Pep. I don't feel like Chelsea are going to sack Frank this season. So they're saying that it's even less likely that it's even less likely that Mikel Arteta will get sacked. That's really interesting. Nuno's 50-1, Jose's 55, Brendan 66, Hasselhotel 66, Carlo Ancelotti 80-1, Jurgen Klopp is 100-1. Yeah, I can't see it happening, but fascinating that is so high. That might be worth £1, bet or something like that. I'm not really a betting man myself, but you never know. Anyway, I think we've done there. We've got an international break coming up, so no games next week. It is next week, isn't it? I think it's like 21st of October is the next round. Yeah, 21st of October. Well, the tasty games looking here. Obviously, Leeds Arsenal, I think, would be good. Spurs City, very good. Liverpool Leicester, yep. I really hope Palace can beat Burnley. That would be a really good win for us, and it really pushes up the table. Man United West Brom will be interesting because we've seen that Man United can struggle against teams with a low block, so we'll see how that goes. And yeah, it's fascinating, the Premier League at the minute. I'm really enjoying it. But till next time, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.